Okay, Christmas has brought us 4 movies. It was supposed to bring us 5, but it only brought us 4.
No one knows why it happened either.
To be inconvenient.
Yeah.
So we're going to start. It doesn't really matter what order these are in, I suppose. So we're just going to start with Joy. AKA the whole world turns on David O. Russell.
Pretty much.
So this is apparently about a woman who took charge and came up with an idea and moved on and became this big thing for QVC, and then apparently she's already moved on to like the Home Shopping Network or something.
That's how the movie basically ends.
So, and of course the very first thing, Russell's really trying to say something important here. You can tell because a little dedication comes up before the movie even starts about how, I can't remember exactly what it said, but basically this is a movie dedicated to all the strong women out there, the strong independent woman.
Is Beyonce's voice in the background?
The guy who called Lily Tomlin a cunt while they were working together wants to talk about the strong women of the world and put this message out there for them. All right. So.
Oh God, no wonder he's so disliked.
Okay. Well, okay. First off, I'm not even sure where to start here. I guess we'll start with the fact that, okay, I don't really mind Russell before this movie. A lot of people, okay, when American Hustle came out, people seemed to like it pretty well. And a lot of people took to it, and it was actually quite popular when it came out.
Right.
But all it took was like 2 people to say American Hustle sucks. And suddenly everybody, it was like some kind of ripple effect. Everybody hates American Hustle now.
I hung in until the bitter end. I went down with the ship with that movie.
So,
you know what I'm talking about.
And I get it, okay. I don't mind American Hustle, but I get why people don't like it. Because it's all over the damn place, and Russell's been doing the same thing he's been at for a while now. And he really, really did it with this movie, which is somebody else writes a script for a movie. Like a legitimate script for a movie that you can actually imagine on a screen when you read it. But what Russell does is he picks it up and then he basically rewrites it entirely so that he has the sole credit. He's had like 3 different fights with 3 different screenwriters over this. And then, because first it was John Ridley, and then it was, I don't know if he had, the guy that originally wrote American Hustle, it still has a writing credit. But then she was the co-writer with Kristen Wiig on Bridesmaids, I think is who she was, wrote Joy. But you'll notice Russell's the only one that gets a writing credit. And what he basically does, I guess, I don't know, I've never seen a script written by Russell, but I'm gonna guess it's just a whole it's like names and then blank lines underneath. Because to my understanding, his process is he writes a script, but then when they get to the set, he just screams new lines at them as they do takes. And that really, really shows up in his movies. Sometimes they feel nice and natural. Like I love the scene in American Hustle when Bale and Renner are talking about like shrimp or something. And it just seems like it's just totally not supposed to be in there. So sometimes it works. But it can also make you really, really messy if you don't have control of it. And yeah, he seems to just kind of be awfully free in the writing process in the editing room. And a lot of people think that's really showing in a negative way in his movies lately. But I haven't minded it until now. Like, I don't hate Joy or anything. But I just have no idea what this movie's doing most of the time.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about more Russell-isms, there's the dysfunctional family thing. Because we had, going back all the way to Flirting with Disaster, the whole plot of that movie is about that. But then you have the elements in The Fighter, were about Mickey's whole dysfunctional family. And then there was Silver Linings Playbook, which was that whole thing. which they kind of somewhat skipped over in American Hustle. I guess you could really, really dive into it if you want. I guess you could between Lawrence and Bale and their stuff. And here, we're just kind of going back into it. But the thing is there was a charm with Mickey Ward's family and Pat's family from Silver Linings Playbook. We're just really, really getting redundant now, though, aren't we? Like, the very first scene of this movie just starts right in with that. With De Niro breaking stuff and Virginia Madsen freaking out and being some weird invalid type. They just go right into it, and you're just like, oh, wow, this is just already played out. The movie's not even been on for 5 minutes. So that's what it is. A lot of this movie is just Jennifer Lawrence putting up with everybody's shit. Until people try to screw her over because she created the Miracle Mop and everybody wants to take it from her because she's a woman. And guys can get away with that in this business world. That's pretty much what the whole movie's point is. It's just the fact that it's 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's all that in between. There's the thing where she was married to Edgar Ramirez, and then they got divorced, but he still lives in the basement, and they still kind of have a chemistry thing, but not really, because Jennifer Lawrence and Edgar Ramirez as actors don't really have chemistry in the movie. No. So it makes it even harder to buy. I mean, apparently they're like best friends in real life, because most, if not all of these people are real. But I just was not getting that vibe from them in the movie. Probably because it didn't stay on them long enough. We kept getting Tarantino-like flashbacks where it would show us the whole how we got to their relationship and what it is now, but it's just so all over the damn place that you don't really have time to care before it's moving on to something else. It's moving on to Virginia Madsen falling in love with the plumber, and then he's around all the time. Which is I guess was supposed to be like a really funny. It's like one of those you can almost hear like the audience laugh cue that's supposed to be in theaters. But the whole it really wasn't. It's just they come in and she's doing her, and Lawrence just kind of freezes in this what the fuck thing, because it's like she was like being she was like being racist or something about the plumber.
Oh yeah.
And then I was trying to remember if I was mistaking it for Daddy's Home already, and I'm mixing those up, because there's a similar scene in that as well. But before we get to that, and then she comes in and she's, with the plumber and all that, and it's just, I think we're supposed to, like, find this hilarious or something, just by that frozen look on Lawrence's face, but I'm just kind of still trying to figure out where the fuck we even are in all this. And then there's a whole lot of ways to cast. De Niro doesn't really get to do he gets to do he breaks stuff every now and then because he's a douchebag dad character, that has to move in and out of the house when is or is not being a deadbeat, and we go through all that. And then he has like this romantic pen pal with Isabella Rossellini, who ends up kind of like giving Lawrence the money to fund the Miracle Mop. But the only trouble is she's trying to be like Vito Corleone about it. It's true. Like she's created like the Miracle Mop, and then they do the whole "do you pick up the gun" scene. That just did not feel like it was from this movie. And just I don't know. I'm not sure what Russell was on when he wrote this, or it screamed to this. Excuse me. I don't know that he wrote it on paper. So, yeah, it's hard to tell. He could have had, like, a totally different movie on paper, and then by the lines he told them to say instead on the set, it could just totally be a different movie, for all we know.
Possibly.
Which is only charming so many times. The cast list for this is long. Diane Ladd is her grandma, who's also our narrator, who remains the narrator despite the fact that she dies halfway through. This is just that kind of movie. It's almost kind of like the whole script. I have to say in quotes pretty much every time I say it. Just imagine I'm doing this every time I say script. it's like he was going through and he was coming up with all this stuff, and he's like, her grandma will be the narrator because she was like the driving force for her. I believe in myself. I can do all this stuff. And then he's like, oh yeah, the grandma dies, and like, it's a sad moment for her. And then it's like, oh shit, she's a narrator. I forgot. She'll just keep narrating. That's a thing sometimes. So, we all saw Sunset Boulevard, right? It's the scene in Kick-Ass. We saw Sunset Boulevard and American Beauty and Sin City. Just, all those do it, we can do it too. No, I usually forgive Russell for the mess. Like, I totally see the messiness in American Hustle. I do. The only difference is that there's like well, apparently not for most people, but for me, there's still an entertainment value to American Hustle.
Right.
And that's fine. That makes it easy to get through. All the actors are just really great, except Bradley Cooper. I don't know what the fuck he was doing in American Hustle, but which is really funny because he's kind of on the flip side in Joy. Because where I was watching American Hustle and saying, what the fuck are you doing, Bradley Cooper? In Joy, he's kind of like the saving grace. Yeah. Because when he comes into it, it kind of gives the movie life.
Yeah, it picks up. It really does. That's a good way to put it, too.
So, and he's like he's the dude that basically gets her, he's the dude behind the camera in QVC, basically telling everybody what they're doing and directing the room of calls and shit. Just doing all that. Only trouble is that, we kind of like lose him again for like the last half hour. So there's that, but it's not, and it also definitely, which is really weird because we're doing the whole let's dedicate this to strong women thing. But there's definitely, once again, I'm sure people will say this is another point against American Hustle, but I think for the most part there's still like a sincerity to his movies. Like Silver Linings Playbook hits a lot of people in the right places. Yep. I think The Fighter's really great on him. The Fighter, I think, is his best movie, by far, really.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know people love Three Kings, but as far as like this kind of thing he started doing it kind of started with The Fighter.
I mean, it beat Rocky in our verses, so there you go.
But there's just really feels like a lack of sincerity in this. Like he really just kind of threw this together like as quick as possible. Which is kind of what American Hustle did, where it was, we kind of heard the idea of American Hustle, where it was just called like the Untitled Abscam thing.
Right.
And then suddenly it existed and it was American Hustle and it was coming out that year. Just like that. When it was like in pre-production, it seemed like a month before. So there's definitely, he's kind of like Eastwooding it, where he's trying to, have a very fast process about it. But that did not help Joy very much. Because you could tell that this seemed to be really sped up. And I remember a lot of people, it was kind of like the backlash when The Social Network was announced before anybody had even knew what kind of direction they were taking it in. They just dismissed it as the Facebook movie. This was that woman that invented the mop movie. And people kept saying, how was this going to be interesting and stuff like that. That just seems like a conversation that was being had yesterday. And the movie's been thrown together and into theaters really quick since.
What about Melissa Rivers? I'm curious what you thought of that.
Oh, the fact that she's playing Joan Rivers? Well, she's only there for like 30 seconds. But she's, I mean, if anybody was going to do it, I suppose it was her.
Right.
So, yeah, the only thing is whether or not she's going to get the voice. You can kind of tell it's her doing the voice. It didn't really seem to come, like, totally, completely naturally, but it's not distracting or anything. Like,
no.
It's a little distracting. They chose... I mean, I know going the whole QVC angle, they pretty much had no choice, but... The idea to do the character of Joan Rivers being in the movie at all, like for only 30 seconds, was a lot more distracting than the idea of casting her daughter as her. I mean, we just saw Ice Cube's son play him earlier this year. So
yeah.
That's...
Greatly, mind you, too.
So, there's... I mean, it's really... obviously, Lawrence is really good, like she is most of the time. So there's nothing wrong with it. I don't even know anymore if it's popular to hate her. It might be. I don't know anymore. But she's fine here, like she always is, and that's kind of something that I would say that's probably what keeps it from just being a total and complete crash and burn disaster. On top of when Bradley Cooper comes in and injects it with adrenaline, but and then we just kind of end. Like we do like technically come to a close. It's not like they just leave the story open or anything. But it just kind of seems like we just kind of abruptly get to that point. And then it's like, yeah, she's a strong, independent woman now, the end. It's very, kind of, yeah. So I don't know. I liked it better, like, when it was over than I do now. Like, from that second when David O. Russell's name comes up, and you're kind of processing, like, how the movie was, and it was like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But sitting in front of you now, I'm not so sure. So it's kind of waning quickly, but it's not, it's not terrible or anything. It's not as bad as a lot of people want you to believe American Hustle is. But it could have used some patience, maybe.
I'm wondering how it's actually going to do this week.
I just know, I heard it's doing pretty well.
That's good.
Like, box office wise. Okay. That's my review of Joy is just kind of ending the way the movie did. We're just kind of, that's just all, really. There's not really a whole lot to say about it.
Let's move forward.
It just does its damn thing.
Yeah. Whatever
that is. And then it's just done with you as an audience. It might as well, when it says directed by David O. Russell, it might as well have also said get the fuck out now underneath.
Don't forget to clean up.
Which you wouldn't put that past him to say to you.
No, I really wouldn't.
But yeah. I do still think he is a talented filmmaker and does know how to tell a story. He's just kind of, I think he needs to be reined in a little bit.
Right.
And kind of slow down his process just a little bit. I mean, it's nice. It's great to be able to just kind of, put movies out as fast as you can. But sometimes you can really tell when it's done that way and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of make sure it's a little more glued together before you throw it out there for people to lay eyes on. Our second movie is Daddy's Home, which you knew I was real psyched for.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the new Will Ferrell movie. David O. Russell fans and Will Ferrell fans hate me right now.
Yeah.
It's him reuniting with Mark Wahlberg after the other guys. Only while Adam McKay is off doing Oscar movies now, this is what we have here. And I gotta tell you, even though Adam McKay might be, unless Room really takes off in the adapted screenplay category, we might have Adam McKay an Oscar winner by the end of the season. And that's interesting that his name is also on this. And the reason I knew this before the movie started was because I have grown very accustomed to seeing that Gary Sanchez logo.
Same here.
And just going, oh, God damn it.
Yep.
Oh, God, what is going to do for all of this? Because they did something really off the wall recently. Was it Our Brandis Crisis? It was something that was odd to have the Gary Sanchez logo on it. I was thinking it might not have been that. I think it was something like really serious, but I can't remember. And so the movie begins, and just to kind of give you an idea before it even starts, the beginning and end, they bookended. I don't know if it's some kind of joke that just landed bad, or if it was maybe like an in-joke, like with the crew and everybody and the writing staff and all that, or if this movie's just this blatant about everything. But one of the very first scenes of this movie and one of the very last scenes of this movie are basically a Ford commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, that joke can work in movies like Talladega Nights with Applebee's, because that's just that world.
Right.
That's just how it works. It makes sense in the context of that movie. But the first and last scene of this movie are Will Ferrell driving around in his Ford and basically speaking from the script of a commercial for Ford as he drives around. And then the movie just goes on. And I don't think it's a joke. Because it just has no... As a joke, it has no context. But never mind. Because there's plenty more to talk about, I guess. It's... The whole setup is obviously that... Well, obviously, you know, the whole Will Ferrell's the stepdad and Mark Wahlberg's the real dad, and he gets out of jail, and then the kids don't like Ferrell because he's the stepdad, but they love Mark Wahlberg because he's cool and he's the real dad and all that, and they never see him, he's never around and all that. And Will Ferrell's just dorky because he's doing the whole, he's playing the square again. But there's a whole other thing here, and that's the fact that he has to always be the stepdad because he can't have children of his own. Which is a really big plot point. It like kind of becomes the main storyline by the end. Which is really weird because they don't really seem to care about that storyline because the whole thing is brought on. Maybe this was funny to the writers. I don't know. And maybe it'll be funny to some people watching, but and it's just a joke in itself. But I just found it really weird that they couldn't just say he can't have children. Or it couldn't be like, you know, because that's kind of a dramatic thing. And you know, because all comedies do this, they're gonna do their wacky, out of control, over the top hijinks thing, and then by the end we're gonna get all serious and shit, and everything's gonna be sad and dramatic and all that until everything's happy again. You kind of have a golden setup for your drama part of the movie. There is an Edward Burns movie called The Groomsman that is a comedy that uses this really, really well as a dramatic plot point within a comedy. Here, it's revealed how it happened to him as a throwaway joke. And then it just kind of becomes this thing later that they use to make different kinds of jokes about it. And it's the whole thing about that Will Ferrell gets drunk at a basketball game, and that's where the dramatic part comes in. I don't know what was going on with this, but they just kind of, I don't know. I thought that was a lost opportunity in regards to how comedies handle those situations where they're inevitably going to go serious, and we as an audience are just waiting for them to get past it. Because it's clearly not going to add anything if you don't know what you're doing with it. And then we kind of lift jokes from other movies. Quite blatantly. Do you remember that running joke in Date Night? When Tina Fey used to date Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah.
And they go to the door. And the joke is that Wahlberg is almost always in a towel. And Carell spends like the whole movie telling him, you know, put on a fucking shirt.
Yes.
They just totally lift that.
Yeah.
And put it in this movie. And keep Mark Wahlberg as the person with his shirt off. It's just Will Ferrell saying it now instead of Steve Carell. It's just Ron Burgundy saying it now instead of Brick.
Oh my God.
That's the only change they made. And it's Linda Cardellini who is the wife. Who can be really, really talented. But they just don't fucking care. She's just the wife. Yeah, that's just all she does.
Doesn't have enough to do here. Looking great for 40 though. My God.
You'd think these people would have seen Freaks and Geeks, but they're like, nah, give her the wife role. We don't care about her.
Even Grandma's Boy.
She
did
can
more
be
with that role too.
Yeah.
The Scooby-Doo series, of course.
So that's a whole lot of missed opportunities here and just kind of lifting stuff, but there are a lot of funny scenes in it. The only problem is is that they're just funny individual scenes.
Right.
Like, if people were to ask me if this movie is funny, I would kind of debate what my answer would be. I couldn't bring myself to just flat out say, yes, it's funny.
That's implying it all is
because
funny.
it's kind of, like there's funny lines and jokes and stuff like that. Funny characters. But then, like, there are a couple of scenes that really, really stand out. By stand out, I mean stick out, I should say. Stand out usually means it stands above the rest of the material. But when it sticks out, they're a little off. And that is a couple of very over-the-top physical gags that use very, very obvious CGI.
Yeah.
That was a little strange to put in the movie.
I mean, Tony Hawk being in the movie?
It's almost like they were kind of going for the really over-the-top slapsticky stuff that happened in Meet the Parents. But believe it or not, the stuff in the first Meet the Parents we're talking about, of course, like when there's the fire and then the gutter falls and then the wire comes down and then the whole thing explodes. It was like a chain reaction of things. But the only issue is this movie wants to do like the funny lines and funny characters and then just kind of jump right into this really over-the-top shit just really abruptly. And then it's gone just as fast as it appeared. And it's just weird. It's just really weird in there. So there's that. This is another one of those movies where they'll say something funny or they'll do something funny, but then Will Ferrell's character is there to describe why it's funny. That happens a lot with his Thomas Hayden Church scenes, where Thomas Hayden Church says something really funny or does something really funny, and if they had just let it go and you just kind of like, because it's not like traditionally funny, like Thomas Hayden Church will just say something or do something, and it'll be funny to you just by the way he does it, but it has to be Will Ferrell there to describe, hey, Thomas Hayden Church, that thing you just did, that's weird. And they kind of, hey, get this, speaking of his doing that to Thomas Hayden Church, this is another one of those movies also where you kind of know how this, obviously in most comedies, even halfway decent ones, you kind of know what's going to be the chain reaction of things. The chain reaction of scenes that get us to where we're going to end. Most of the time in comedies, we already know that. That is foreseen from the start. But there were times here where I would just know, like as soon as the scene would start, I just knew that scene from until the very end of it. And then the very next scene was the exact same way. And there was a whole chain of it for a while there. There was when he takes Wahlberg to work with him, I already had the image in my head of like Thomas Hayden Church being buddy-buddy with him and shaking his hand. He actually shook his fucking hand too.
He did.
That whole scene played out exactly as it did in my head before the scene even really happened. And then they get back and they see that a handyman is at the house from one of the big over-the-top slapstick scenes. And I was like, well, that's going to be Hannibal Buress because his name was in the credits.
Right.
Sure enough, here he came. And I was like, well, we have Hannibal Buress as the handyman. This scene will not end without race jokes. And sure enough, they appeared like magic. And then I was like, well, that was a really abrupt scene for Hannibal Buress, given that he had an individual credit in the opening credits. I'll bet he's in a lot more scenes, and they milk his character for all he's worth. And sure enough...
It's true.
Sure enough, that's exactly what he does. And the reason I say all that stuff is, it's very interesting that scenes play out this way. Because there's actually a moment in the movie where, like I said, if there were smarter things happening in this movie, I'd almost think it was kind of an in-joke on itself. Like, it was kind of, being self-aware. There is a moment where Thomas Hayden Church is going to tell us a story about his fourth wife and her 23-year-old son. And he starts to go through the whole thing. and he gets through the whole thing, and then there's like a big punchline about it. And Will Ferrell's character just sits there straight-faced, and he says, I saw where that was going, and it's supposed to be like, I had no idea that was coming. He's like, no, from the second word that you said, I knew where that story was going. I was like, really? Is Will Ferrell talking about the story Thomas Hayden Church just told? Or the fucking movies?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it's kind of one thing to do that, and then when you have a character do that, it's like, I was reminded of the scene in Hotel Transylvania when Andy Samberg's character says something, and then Adam Sandler's Dracula Andy Samberg's character says a joke, and then he explains the joke. And then Adam Sandler walks away with him and says, the joke isn't funny, you have to explain why it's funny. And I was like, really, Adam Sandler? Because that's kind of what you fucking do.
Right.
So, now, anyways. So, yeah. And then there's this whole thing about Mark Wahlberg's the cool guy and Will Ferrell's the square. And they're doing... Obviously, this is their reunion after the other guys. Well, that's the thing, though, is... Wahlberg's kind of the character that's, kind of the loose cannon. In Daddy's Home, Wahlberg is the character that's like the loose cannon, and we don't know what he's gonna do, but he might be not as tough as he thinks he is, but he likes to play himself up as that.
Right.
And Will Ferrell is the guy who is really dorky and, doesn't have a lot of things really happen to him. And people are kind of flabbergasted how he ended up with a hot wife. You'll notice I'm also describing their characters in the other guy.
Right.
So might I make a suggestion? I know it would have been weird. But wouldn't we have been really upping up the comedy factor, or at least opening up the gold mine we could have in the right hands, if they switched roles and just went for the totally unexpected?
That would have been awesome.
Like, think about that. I was talking to my brother once. This is just totally random, but that movie Identity Thief. With Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy.
God,
where it's like, it's going to be Melissa McCarthy, and she's going to slapstick around and do all the stupid shit. And just randomly one day, my brother just said, what if that was like Marion Cotillard or something? Then the movie might have been hilarious, because that's just so fucking unexpected. But yeah, you kind of have, a good setup here. I mean, it's very, very, mid-90s. But still a decent setup if you're going to do a comedy, if you do it the right way. But to put Wahlberg in his role and Ferrell in his role, you just have nothing new to offer. You just have nothing to offer at all. It's just kind of, we kind of already saw this, and not only have we kind of seen this plot before in other movies, I'm sure, but we've already seen the two of them play these characters together, having these same interactions. So I just don't... So yeah, you can have funny scenes and funny lines in there, but what does this even add up to? There's really nothing this movie has given you. So...
A lot of throwaway on their talent.
It's like right now. Generally, if a movie is has funny scenes in it, I can tell you what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of... All I remember is the stuff that was irritating me.
Cannavale? Anything there? I know it was a throwaway role, but still.
Yeah, he's like a fertility doctor that gets a little perverted. So that's what that is.
There's a couple cameos.
If you put Rose Byrne maybe in Linda Cardellini's role, maybe she could have given it life or something. But it seems like Linda Cardellini's that actress where she's definitely got something she can use inside her. It's just for some reason when directors cast her, they don't want her to use it.
No.
So, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Age of Ultron. She was real useful in that, wasn't she? She basically played this part. She was playing Hawkeye's wife in this too.
That should have been her credit in the movie, actually. There is a cameo here, and I know a lot of people have heard about it. It's gotten out already. A lot of the message boards have
I didn't know about it.
I knew
all
about it.
But before he took the helmet off, I heard you say it, and I was like, oh, well, thanks. Fuck yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. I was waiting all movie for someone to show up, and yeah. There's always been a comparison.
It makes sense.
There's always been a comparison, and now that one looks nothing like the other.
I made that comparison.
You did, that's what I'm saying.
The first time I laid eyes on him.
Yeah, I know.
And then another movie from this year did it.
Yep.
And now this.
Exactly.
So there's that.
Hollywood's listening to the reviews. You must be worried right now.
Alright. And, semi-spoiler, we just talked about him last week.
Taryn Terrell's in the movie, too. She gets hit with the basketball. That's another wrestling connection.
I don't even know who that is.
TNA. That's why you don't
That'd be why.
Yeah.
Okay. Our third totally different movie now.
Oh my god, yes.
Is Concussion. Concussion, you might have heard, is that movie the NFL's real pissed off about.
Oh, yeah.
They're pissed off about this dude, and now they're pissed off about this movie.
Oh, well.
Because Americans gotta have their football. It doesn't matter who fucking dies, or commits suicide, or blows up, or gets killed in a domestic violence case. As long as we have our football, we're good to go. That's the way this goes. Okay. I want to talk about Will Smith first. Because this is a really great performance from him. I talked about in the prediction video that Will Smith will really, really, really bring it if you let him.
Oh, yeah.
And he was really, really ready for this part.
And it comes off that way, too.
So, this is the best performance he's done in a long time. This might top, oh my god, I don't know. I almost want to say it's his best performance outside of Fresh Prince.
Wow.
But I'm not, I don't know. I'd have to revisit The Pursuit of Happiness and Ali and stuff, but, he's good. I love him in I Am Legend too, but he's like really insanely good in this.
Yeah, he is.
I've even heard, now I've told you I can't really judge this stuff well, but it's clear he has a Nigerian accent. And everybody loves to complain about that shit. I've only heard good things about his accent.
Oh, his accent's
Like,
amazing.
like nobody's complaining about that. It's a fucking miracle. So yes, I just want to put that on the table with me. That's the very first thing I want to say is, this is an incredible performance from Will Smith. And it's a shame that the Best Actor category is so packed this year.
That's what I'm worried about, too.
But he did get that Globe nomination, so we get to cheer him on the 10th.
Yes.
So that's great.
We certainly do.
DiCaprio's gonna take him down, but we can cheer him on anyway. So, okay. There's a couple of things going on here. We start off, the whole thing is set off with David Morse's character. Iron Mike, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm. Mike Webster.
I know, people who are into football and probably know every single aspect of this movie and when it happened and stuff, but, and what's fabricated and what's, movie-ized. But, there's only one thing I heard anything about with that, and I'll get to that. And yeah, David Morse is a really great actor, and obviously he's only in like the first half hour, because he's kind of the character that sets all this off. And he's really good at making those scenes really, like, I felt physically uncomfortable for like the first half of this movie. With how intense the David Morse scenes played off, and like the autopsy scenes. I was kind of wondering, like, how do you do an autopsy in PG-13? How is that accomplished? But they do it in a way to where they don't show it, but it's still equally disturbing.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is another one of those movies with a really long cast list. Another person crucial to this cast is Albert Brooks. The person that was actually, like, going to be prosecuted over this. Apparently it was for, like, to my understanding, in real life, he was, like, being, prosecuted for, like, a totally separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But my main concern here was Albert Brooks' performance, which is, good. We're kind of in that thing now where we have to kind of change Albert Brooks' appearance every time he's in a movie now, starting with A Most Violent Year. And to now. because I do kind of like that he hasn't been typecast in villain roles after Drive. That was just kind of like a one-time thing, and now he's just kind of like the side character that's very Albert Brooksy. He has a really great line, a great moment towards the beginning where Will Smith's character's talking about his process to Albert Brooks, and Brooks is saying that all of it's not a big deal, and Smith says, would you want me, if your mother were to die, would you want me to cut her open with the same knife that I would cut open a serial killer with? And his line is, I'd request it. That's such an Albert Brooks line.
It really is. Like, going back to, like, even the scout sounds like something you would say.
And yeah, regarding his character, that's the thing where apparently, from what I don't know what's a reliable source and what isn't. But just in case people want to call this out and they're like looking to pick this shit apart. Apparently he's that character where the movie made him look a lot better than he did in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he's not, like, as innocent as the movie portrays him. But, like I said, I don't really know about that. There's a really, really, the Arliss Howard scene is really, really good. That's like Smith's really big moment. And of course, the few of us can point out Arliss Howard and say, oh my god, it's Cowboy. How great. Despite all the other great work he's done in his career, he's always going to be Cowboy, come on. Of course. There is a character in this played by Mike O'Malley.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, 90s Nickelodeon fans, that Mike O'Malley.
Who's actually getting a lot of acting roles lately.
And Yes Dear fans as well.
Yeah.
And his character is basically the personification of where the fans were coming from with, you better not fuck with our football. Because it's set in Pittsburgh. And to my understanding, don't murder me now, but to my understanding, Pittsburgh is kind of one of the big areas where all the crazy ass fans are.
Right. Oh yeah, completely agreed. And they will say thank you if you say that.
And Mike O'Malley is basically kind of the character that channels that into this movie.
Correct.
Where it's basically, I don't care who's dying, I don't care how brutal this is.
Football.
Do not fuck with football. There's got to be another reason all these people are going crazy and dying. It just happen to be football players. There just must be another explanation. So he does that well. I really hated his character. I wanted to punch him in his damn face.
Yeah.
So he played the part well.
He did a very good job what he was given. For sure.
Luke Wilson's a bit of an oddity in this movie because number one, it was like rumored that he was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was not confirmed until the poster was released, which was really not long before the movie came out. And he has a crucial role in it. I know that dude's name. That's how crucial that guy is. Only issue is Luke Wilson's performance in this movie is basically a cameo.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He could have gone totally uncredited if he wanted to. I think he's in 3:10 to Yuma more than he's in this.
Oh, yeah, that's probably right, actually.
Okay, so there's that. Now, the other thing I want to get to is, and this stuff, like I said, is intriguing, and it makes you really uncomfortable. That scene Alec Baldwin also is one of the main doctors that's involved in this. But there are some really intriguing scenes involving this stuff. The scene where he has the little jar with the eyeball in it,
mm-hmm.
and he's showing us what happens every time a football player gets hit. That is,
it's chilling.
It really shows you, candidly, the brutality involved in this in a really great way. Like I said, I was really uncomfortable while watching the movie. It's only now in retrospect I'm realizing that that's kind of what makes it so effective. The whole movie is just really uncomfortable to watch when we're in that territory. But like a lot of movies, once we introduce another character, our movie kind of starts to take a little detour.
You're gonna shoot on Gugu. I know you too well.
Gugu Botherall from Bill and that music movie, Beyond the Lights.
Beyond the Lights. The Oscar-nominated Beyond the Lights.
Who is a very good actress she's shown.
Yeah.
And just to the few roles that she's had that are, where she's front and center so far. She's now in this movie as basically a love interest. Yeah, I understand that the dude had a personal life in real life. But, on the other hand, Concussion has a love interest subplot.
Yeah, it does feel kind of forced.
Why? And I know, and yes, it does try to tie into the other stuff towards the end, like with 20 minutes left of a 2-hour movie. But we have our really uncomfortable football scenes. We have Will Smith saying, "This is what happens when they play football," and it's like really disturbing and brutal. And then he and his girlfriend go to a club and they dance and they have a little love story. There's a little romance movie right in the fucking middle of Concussion. What was that for? And it's the whole thing where it starts to play into its... We get the fucking China Syndrome scene where she's like, it's getting so out of control, she's being followed. And they apparently intimidate her into a miscarriage. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know.
That was a weird scene.
I don't know how stuff went down in real life. I don't know. But that felt really... Lifetime.
You remember
channel.
Big Fan? That's how fanatical some people are about sports.
So, like I said, I don't know if it was just really, really heavily dramatized to an almost laughable degree, or if that's just what happened. But the only issue is, even if it felt so overly dramatized that even if it was real, the movie didn't handle it in a way that made it feel real and dramatic. When I was watching the stuff about how this is how football fucks you up, I was like, oh my god, this feels so real and discomforting. And then, she's being followed in her car and she's having a miscarriage. And I was like, yep, this is definitely just a movie. Despite the fact that these people are real. And this shit apparently went down. So that falls more on the movie, obviously. Because if you look at this really happening, you can't say, well, that's over the top. Because that's what happened. But the movie, clearly wasn't portraying it in the right way if it didn't feel like it kind of went in with the rest of what was going on. Just pretty much anytime she was on screen, it was just like, this just kind of doesn't feel like I'm watching the same movie anymore. And once again, that's no fault of hers by any means. That's just her character is just not really handled well. And the fact that they were even gonna have a child just seemed to kind of be abruptly laid on us. So... I don't know, and despite the fact that it's really not so good in these parts, and then really really effective in these parts, just kind of overall as a thing, as a movie, just in general, it doesn't really feel like a whole cohesive thing. Like anytime it kind of feels like it's about to expand on something or go in a particular direction that kind of takes us somewhere. Mm-hmm. It just kind of changes the subject and then goes on to something else. And it kind of never really feels like if we're going to dramatize it and make a movie, why don't we make a movie that has a beginning, middle, and end, but also tells the story? And in fact, because it kind of felt like they were trying to fit a lot into it. If you want, I understand with true stories, you probably want to put as many of the facts fabricated and real in there. You probably want to try to fit it in, but you also kind of got to pick and choose too, and I didn't really feel like this movie was doing that. It just kind of felt like they kept kind of changing their perspective and kind of going to kind of touch on as many things as they could before we finally got to our kind of sudden closing. So, yeah, there was definitely something in here that I think could have been great, but it just kind of, more often than not, kind of falls short of where that could have gone. So,
great performances, though.
That's most of them.
I mean, Will Smith is just amazing.
It's
a shame he's going to get completely overshadowed by everybody else in the category this year.
Well, at least you got out there a little bit.
Yeah, that's a smart move.
All right. Our last movie is Point Break. I was open. I was kind of okay. For starters, let me just say, I think I've said this about a few movies this year, but I'll say this too. I honestly didn't actually. I mean, I don't know if this is a compliment or not. I don't want it to be, so don't take it as one. But it almost sounds like it could be a compliment for me to say, I honestly did not think this movie would ever be made. I kind of thought it was one of those things where it was mentioned, and then people would have their, oh my god, they're going to remake that, and it's just some really random movie.
You did a video about this a while back.
But then, I kind of thought, because a lot of the time, like, people still complain that there are a lot of remakes out there, and there are. But a lot of the time, when we hear about really, really pointless sounding remakes, those things get killed before they exist. I do not know how this one made it all the way here. Except for the fact that Erickson Core is the director, and he's the director and he's the DP, and he was also the DP, believe it or not, on Catherine Bigelow's movie. Which you know how I feel about because I did that review a couple of years ago. Maybe a couple of you that saw that one.
I'll put it in a link in the description bar.
So I wasn't really. Well, I looked. Okay. Okay, as far as our two stars here, Edgar Ramirez has already made his way back into this video. Playing Bodhi. And I hear Edgar Ramirez can be really talented. I haven't seen Carlos yet. That's what everybody jumps to when they say Edgar Ramirez. You have to see that performance. It's incredible. So I don't really have any. I think the first movie I saw him in was Domino. Maybe there was something before that I don't remember. But
No.
it's to me. I totally do not think of Bodhi when I think of Edgar Ramirez, or the other way around. And even generally that can work. It could be like a surprise thing. But no. What I imagined Edgar Ramirez as Bodhi would be like is pretty much what I got. And then we have this guy playing Johnny Utah. What's his name?
Luke Bracey.
Luke Bracey. Okay. I'm mixing him up with the guy that was in Love the Coopers. So the thing about it is, the Johnny Utah obviously was played by Keanu Reeves. And we all have pretty much the same opinion on Keanu Reeves. We all love Keanu Reeves. We do. But at the same time, we kind of know Keanu Reeves. You know what I mean. You wouldn't call Keanu Reeves like a thespian or anything. But we all love him anyway for his charisma and the way he just dives balls first into these movies like this. So, I don't know if they were like, well, Utah was originally played by Keanu Reeves, so we clearly don't need a real actor in this role. Let's just grab the first guy that auditions. I'm sure he'll make the cut. So, because the original movie, you know, is famous for the Reeves delivery of, I am an FBI agent. He goes Cage on us.
Nice.
But there was still something fun about that performance. Like, when you hear the name Johnny Utah, the very first thing you think of is, like, Keanu Reeves and his hair and playing football on the beach and shit. And he just fits. He just kind of fits the character. Like, when you just kind of see him, like, you don't even, like, even with I am an FBI agent and stuff like that, you kind of don't see Keanu Reeves when you watch Point Break. You see, like, this dude is Johnny Utah and he is badass, and you just leave it at that. So, just kind of thinking you can just put any random dude in that role. Believe it or not, it actually is not that easy to replace Keanu Reeves. Because you think that Keanu Reeves is very, not exactly an actor's actor, but when you see this guy as Johnny Utah, Daniel Day-Reeves is who I think played Johnny Utah in the original movie. Jesus. For the love of God.
Yeah.
This is kind of reaches a whole other level. And of course, naturally, this is an updated Point Break. And they want you to know that in the first scene. So, obviously, we know Johnny Utah as the ex-football player turned FBI agent. This guy is... What's that shit called? Motocross. He's a motocross guy. And what's one of the very first things he says to his boy there? They're talking about how many hits they're going to get on YouTube.
Yeah.
For no other purpose than to say, this movie's updated.
Oh, God.
So, and then it turns into the cliffhanger opening.
Yeah.
Which is fucking hilarious. Johnny Utah has a tragic backstory now. And his tragic backstory is he and his friend are doing the motocross thing, and then for some reason, I have no idea what the plan is here, but they have this whole thing here, and then they have... Remember that scene in... I'm asking you to remember the Lone Ranger. I know that's a long shot, but... You remember that scene in the Lone Ranger when Armie Hammer woke up and he was on that thing where he was like standing on it and he was in the middle of nowhere and it was just a drop-off all around him?
Yeah.
They decide to ramp and land on that with, I guess, no plan of how to get down. That's what I thought the whole thing was going to lead to. But Fucknut here overshoots the thing and, like, slides off the side. And I'm already laughing at this as he's trying to save him. And I'm like, this kind of feels like a parody or something. Is this, like, kind of like when they did that Jackass movie where they had Beavis and Butthead at the beginning of it? Is this, like, a funny prologue or something? And then he, like, falls to his death. And it's really funny. And I'm like, okay, so I guess they want us to take this seriously. But it's at that moment where, as he's falling, we get the really dramatic title. And I was like, oh, I see. Not only were we supposed to take that seriously, we were supposed to take that real seriously. Oops.
Yeah, that didn't work.
So, I guess that's why he decided to be an FBI agent.
That makes sense.
I'm not sure where the segue was, but I guess that's what we're supposed to assume. Let's just throw our arms up and go with it. And in the next room is Delroy Lindo. And Delroy Lindo went to movie police chief school.
Oh my God.
Watched every single movie with a cliche police chief in it and jotted down notes.
Including Last Action Hero. That's the biggest vibe I was getting.
And there's a little Chief Stearns in him too.
Yeah.
And you know, Delroy Lindo's got quite a resume on him too. I think he's mainly like a theater guy now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I could be wrong on that, but I'm thinking so. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure why anybody took roles in this, let alone these parts, especially if you actually have talent, which is like maybe half the cast.
Wow, we're playing Marcus Garvey soon.
So, okay. And the thing about it is, I don't know who I'm talking to here. But I'm addressing you directly as somebody watching this. Can we agree, though, that Point Break is probably one of the most exciting movies ever made? There is just so much crazy-ass shit going down in that movie all at once, just for a straight 2 hours, like, non-stop. And it's crazy, and it's fun, and it's awesome. That whole movie is... It's interesting that a woman directed, quite frankly, one of the most testosterone-fueled movies of all time. So, there's that. And now you're kind of wondering, okay, if you're going into a Point Break remake, the only question on your mind is, what are the action scenes like? Because that's all Point Break is.
Right.
Is awesome fucking action scenes.
That's what saves the movie.
Huh?
That's what makes it what it is.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
So, the first question is, are they going to go skydiving? That was honestly my main concern. Because that is kind of the climax of the original movie. Well, there is a skydiving scene, at like the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. It's a decent skydiving scene. The only issue, though, is when you, and I hate to do a whole always comparing it to the original thing, but this is kind of a movie that asks for that. Especially when the director and DP was the DP of the original movie. It's a guy that should have known what he was doing.
Right.
This dude really needs Catherine Bigelow to survive, I guess. Somebody call her, please, and bring her to us. Because we really needed her today during this viewing. I know she's all about the war movies now. That's like all she wants to do for the rest of her life. But she could have consulted or something to make this not a complete disaster. just give your input or something. Give him a call. Leave it on his voicemail or something. Say, hey, do this and don't do this because your movie will blow. I know this because I am Catherine Bigelow. But I don't think we did that.
No.
Because you take one of the most exciting movies of all time with some of the greatest action scenes ever put on film, and you make it one of the most boring movies I have seen in a long time. How does one even go about going from one extreme to the other like that? With this setup. You're gonna remake Point Break. Listen to this, okay? You remember when they went skydiving in the original? They jumped out of a fucking plane. Because that's how skydiving works. Not today. Not today. Today, we're gonna do base jumping. And when we do this, we gotta do it off a mountain. There's one issue. When you're gonna do an awesome skydiving scene from a plane, your plane just kind of goes up in the air, and you get to fucking skydive, and it gets to be awesome. About them base jumping off a cliff in this movie, there's one thing I don't believe you see. It's been a little while since I saw it, but I'm pretty sure there's something that you don't see in the original Point Break. And that is our band of crazy-ass robbers going on a fucking hike. We have to watch them go on a fucking hike to get to the top of the mountain before they base jump off of it. It's a whole scene. And it's... The hike scene's longer than the base jumping scene itself, too. Like, in real life, it would take them much longer to get to the top than it would to get to the bottom.
Right.
But we almost experience it in real time. Who decided to remake Point Break and say, we're gonna hike in real time? It almost seems unreal. It seems like an intentional joke. I don't know. Are we sure this isn't a continuation of that Robot Chicken sketch? Where it's the scene in the real movie where Keanu looks at Swayze and he says, are we gonna jump or are we just gonna jerk each other off? And of course in the movie they jump, but in the Robot Chicken sketch we just see the door of the airplane close. It's fucking hilarious. It feels like this. So, okay. Also, there's a lot of snowboarding in this movie. Now, once again, I hate to just make comparisons constantly to the original, but when you think about skydiving, and football on the beach, and foot chases where Swayze's throwing fucking dogs at people, and all the other stuff that happens in that movie, I can't even think of it all. They hit like every single action thing you can do. Snowboarding is kind of not that exciting in comparison.
Not really.
Have you ever, there was that one movie, Extreme Ops.
Oh god.
Remember Extreme Ops?
Yes.
Or Vertical Limit with Chris O'Donnell?
Oh my god.
Were those movies exciting?
No.
No!
No,
they weren't! So who thought, let's remake Point Break, but put a lot of snowboarding in it? That doesn't come to... I'm sure if you're a snowboarder, it's pretty intense.
Right.
Watching snowboarding in a movie when you know it's fake? Not so much. I'd much rather watch Patrick Swayze throw dogs at people.
Oh, yeah.
Personally. I would never in any way want a dog to be harmed. But if Patrick Swayze's throwing them in movies, I'm all for it. They'll be okay, I hope. I'm sure. As long as they're okay, please let Swayze throw all the dogs he can. Because that's kind of awesome in the most over-the-top way possible. Because that's just what that movie was. It just fit the over-the-top awesomeness that was that movie. This, and that here, yeah, get this bullshit. You remember how they'd put on the presidential masks, and they'd rob banks, and they'd go skydiving, and they'd go surfing. Surfing was a big deal in the first one.
Yeah, of course.
Which is great. Surfing movies can be awesome.
Yeah.
Big Wednesday is great. All that. They did that shit. Swayze and his crew did that because they were off their fucking rockers. Because they were insane. And they wanted the thrill of it. In this movie, they do it because they worship some dude. And it's like a checklist of crazy things to do to complete what this prophet or whatever started. I don't even know what that was. And I was only half paying attention when they even brought that shit up. Because who fucking cares? Why would they... There's another person in this movie. And as soon as I say who, I'll bet you can envision every single scene that she's in. They put Teresa Palmer in this movie. I'll commend them for one thing. I'm guessing she's supposed to be Lori Petty.
That's what it looks like. And
yeah, Point Break had to have this. The original Point Break had to have the scene where she eventually found out he was a cop, and it was kind of dramatic and all that. This movie does kind of skip that. Like, he just does kind of abruptly, say, like, "Hey, Bodhi, I'm FBI, and you're fucked!" In bad actor speak. And so, like, how I delivered it just now is pretty much the way he says it.
That sounds pretty accurate, to be honest.
Teresa Palmer is the big love interest. And not so surprisingly, she's got 3 damn scenes in this whole movie. She's there to be stoic surfer chick. Then it's like, oh my god, I am so gonna bang her before this movie's over. Then you have your second scene, where they bang. And then you have their last scene. And it's just kind of like, every time she was on screen was like poison to an already poisoned movie. It was like somebody had just suffered a snake bite, and you'd walk up and slap them. Because it would just be... And she's not like a bad actress. Some people like to say she is, but she's not really if she's trying. She's kind of shown that before, but if she's trying, she's not bad. And it's not even really that. It's just the whole idea of this character even being here. When she's on screen, all they do... Well, first off, when they have their first conversation, it is just kind of so disjointed, and the script just so doesn't care. They just know there has to be a PG-13 kiss and sex scene in it. That's the only reason her character exists. So, the first time they meet, they basically have 3 different conversations in one scene. And they just kind of start and stop in the middle of each other. That's just kind of the sloppy way the scene is written. It's just to kind of say, these two have a connection. Can you see it? Because they're going to bang later. Even though it doesn't matter. There's the whole scene where Ray Winstone was like, having surveillance on him. And it's like it's going to be this big blackmail thing where he's got footage of him like banging her. That just never really mattered anymore. Like, after he said, "Hey, I watched you fucking," that's just never brought up again. That may have just been to say that Ray Winstone's creepy. So, I don't know. That's just where that movie's thought process was at the time. And even though she only has 3 scenes, we have to build up the fact that they're gonna fuck. And how do the lazy screenwriters of the world do this? You have a character that only exists so a PG-13 sex scene can happen. What do you do to progress this forward so we can have the sex scene? Despite the fact she only has 3 scenes that do not matter to anything in the full context. She has a tragic backstory. And that's a long scene where she goes through it. If it wasn't long, it fucking felt like it. Yeah, this movie's almost 2 hours of this bullshit.
It's way too long.
So, and it's got like 3 climatic action scenes in it.
And
Even
also,
though we know it's gonna end with fucking Bodhi going off in the waves. But they still end it like 3 times before that anyway. While we're talking about knowing what the ending is, there's one thing in this movie that's like fan service. The only issue is this movie is so misguided that it's fan service related to Point Break, but I don't think it's fan service for Point Break. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You might know where I'm going with this. The one scene that they lift directly from the original movie is the scene where Bodhi's here and Utah's laying down on his side, pointing the gun at him. And Utah runs away and gets away. And I'm wording it this way on purpose. Utah fires his gun up in the air and goes, "Arr!" That's the one scene that they pulled. And I'm thinking, hopefully I'm not the only one, that they're not even referencing Point Break. They're referencing Hot Fuzz referencing Point Break.
Yeah.
By putting that scene of all the other scenes from the original movie in this one. Making sure this one was in there frame by frame. How pathetic can you get? So, okay. Now, the thing about it, and there's the whole thing where it's like, hey, Bodhi, you were my brother, but I'm FBI and you're bad. You totally get that vibe from Reeves and Swayze.
Mm-hmm.
You can totally get that brotherly vibe from them, just because they kind of had that thing going on. I wasn't buying shit between these two. No. Like, Bodhi doesn't even really do much in this movie. He just... But, okay, let me just talk about the fact that I have to say a lot that, I don't see remakes necessarily as the evil thing that everybody else does.
Right.
Every time something is remade, without even thinking about it, people just hate it for existing.
Yeah, on principle alone.
And it gets really annoying and really old really fast. Because it just makes you predictable as a person. Despite the fact that it is telling the story that another more popular movie already told, you hating it on principle before seeing it is more predictable than the movie itself is going to be. And I just kind of hate that. Because there can be really good and interesting things that come from seeing a popular movie from another director's perspective with other actors in the roles. Mm-hmm. It can be really interesting to see what it's like in a different vision and with a different appearance. Yeah, most of them are pointless and bad, but to dismiss them entirely and not at least be a little intrigued of how they're going to turn out. You know, because that's the... I didn't go into this saying they remake Point Break, this is going to blow because Point Break's fucking amazing. Which it is. But at the same time, it wasn't me saying they're never going to top the original, this is pointless. I go in with a curiosity about what it's going to be like. And don't immediately jump to it's going to suck. That certainly makes it more interesting. But here, I do not know what the point was, because generally the idea is to you can put more interesting actors, or at least interesting actors that could fit the roles. I really don't think they gave a fuck who they cast in this.
No.
Half of this cast we're probably never going to see again. This movie's probably gonna, like, struggle to break the top 10. And it's kind of like, if you're gonna remake a movie, you know, go big or go home. But go big or go home takes a whole other meaning on when you're remaking fucking Point Break. So, you get the idea that you're going to remake Point Break. And one of the big scenes is them taking a fucking hike. You say that to people you want to go away. If some annoying person walks up to you, you say, go take a hike. You don't go to a movie called Point Break to watch someone take a hike.
That's a good point.
Who does... Whose thought process was this? Like, even if you remake the same thing, like if you have the surfing scenes and the football on the beach, you have the football and not the fucking motocross. And you have, you know, the skydiving scene exactly as is. You know, and at least you're making an effort to say, we can, maybe if we re-envision this, we can do it bigger and better and make it even more over the top or even more crazy or something. But to just take Point Break and make it one of the most hard to stay awake during movies of the year... I just can't even fathom how that happens. I just have no idea.
No.
So, and to take the whole... To try and give it some meaning by making Bodhi some philosopher that worships some dude that made a list of crazy shit to do. I don't know. This had the Joy effect. I was gonna cut this a break when we got out of the theater, but I don't want to do that.
Well, when you talk about movies, it's kind of like you're thinking one way, and then by the time you're done, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking another way.
Okay, let's finish this video because that's the last one.
Sounds good. That would be Star Mount time. Joy.
2.
Daddy's Home.
2.
Concussion.
2.5.
Point Break.
We'll just go with 1. I was gonna give it 1.5.
Oh, wow.
Fuck that shit. I just don't know. I don't.
You may be talking about that before the year's over.
I just don't understand how that happened. Like, just with the...
I know.
Just with the concept. It seems impossible.
But
like, you just say, I'm gonna remake Point Break. And by the way, I shot the original movie. I'm the director and the DP on this one. It just seems like it turning out this way should have been impossible.
Agreed.
Like, it should have had at least one exciting scene in it.
Yeah.
The original movie is 2 straight hours of exciting scenes. Even the scenes in the FBI offices, you're just kind of like, yeah, because there was the whole banter with him and Gary Busey. I don't know. This is just crazy to me.
You're left dumbfounded.
And dumber, just in general.
And the literal final movie review of the year. Yeah.
What's on this?
Your final movie you reviewed in 2015 was Point Break. Oh, God. Next week, though, The Hateful Eight. Oh, my God, we waited so long for this. And it's finally going to happen. And who knows, we may have a Big Short, too. There's a possibility. You never know.
It's hard.
We got The Revenant coming in a couple weeks.
We've already seen Spotlight and Trumbo, so those will be on there. And we're hoping to have more. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think The Danish Girl will be on that lineup at some point, too.
If we get lucky.
Yeah, we've also got New Year's Eve. It's officially confirmed now due to my work schedule. We are doing our Academy Awards predictions. We're going to break it up a little bit differently this time. We're going to do the big 8 categories like we normally do. And there's going to be another video that's going to tie in the rest of the categories. So, that being said, thank you for watching today. Versus this week is Ever Ever After, or Happily Ever After in this case. And that'll be the final versus of the year. So, that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?